Welcome back to the Willadelphia Show, everybody! It's an all-new Eagles offseason edition of the Willadelphia Show. Willie B is back after graduating, and I got a whole lot to talk about, folks. Will gives his thoughts on Jeremy Fowler's hatchet piece on Jalen Hurts and how uncoachable he is. I'll tell you why this is nothing but a popcorn headline and why Jalen Hurts may be the most coachable quarterback in football. It's been a little while, so we'll go over the free agency moves, or lack thereof, for the Eagles, why the few additions the Eagles did make set the team up well going into the draft. And now that he's set up nicely, who will Howie take in the draft? Why the Eagles may prioritize a position that isn't the top need going into the season. All that coming up right here on the Willadelphia Show. Welcome into the Willadelphia Show, everybody. My name is Will Barbera, and it's great to see you guys again, man. I first wanted to start off by saying that I am so sorry for the lack of content lately. I actually did just graduate from the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting at Full Sail University, so the last month has been crazy. I've just been kind of solely committed to finishing school in the best way that I could. But now that it's over, I can get back to doing what I love, and that's making good content for all you nice people out there. So with that being said, we'll do this Eagles offseason edition, and then we'll do one more at the end of the month after the draft concludes. So be on the lookout for that. But we got to get into it because we got too much to talk about. So ESPN's Jeremy Fowler released a piece just a couple days ago that's basically pure intent was to slander Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. The piece claims that an anonymous team source told him that the Eagles signal caller is, quote, not the most coachable, and then also proceeded to say that the nightmare 4-verts play that the Eagles drew up to save their season against San Francisco in the wild card round was not drawn up by Dunce offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, but that it was actually Jalen Hurts who made the call. Let me tell you guys right away, I don't buy it for 1 second. I'm not buying anything that they're selling me in this story. Not one goddamn thing. Let's start with the not the most coachable comment, okay? Because I think that's ridiculous. Over the last 11 years of Jalen Hurts' professional football career, he has had 10 different offensive play callers. Eagles' new hire, Sean Mannion, will be his 11th in his 12th year. Do the math with me, folks. That's a new play caller every season except for one. In college with Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Mike Locksley, and Lincoln Riley, he won 2016 SEC Offensive Player of the Year, a 2017 NCAA National Championship, and then finished second in the Heisman Trophy voting in 2019 at Oklahoma. He then got to the NFL and has been named to 3 Pro Bowls, a second-team All-Pro, finished second in MVP voting, and won the Burt Bell Award in 2022, has been to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them, including being named the MVP of the Super Bowl that he won. I literally don't care what excuses you have for that resume that I just read out loud to you. That is a really solid resume for a guy who is entering the 7th year of his NFL career. He has accomplished all of that while only having one coordinator in the past 11 seasons stick around for more than 1 year. If he's accomplished all of that with a different offensive play caller on a yearly basis, then I really don't understand how you could say that he is uncoachable in any way. As a matter of fact, I'd make the argument that he is more coachable than any quarterback because of that very same fact. And I know all you morons out there who hate Jalen Hurts, I know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to go, well, maybe they don't stick around because they don't like working with Jalen. Okay, got it. So they don't like winning. That's your argument, is they don't like winning. Let's look at what each of those play callers did after leaving Philadelphia, okay? Doug Peterson had a 22-29 record as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars after leaving Philly. He didn't even make it through the 4-year contract that he got before being canned. Shane Steichen left to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts in 2023. He's 25-26 there and hasn't made the playoffs in his tenure. Brian Johnson got picked up by the Commanders as a quarterbacks coach for a year after getting canned by the Eagles, and now he's a senior offensive assistant for the Los Angeles Rams. He's literally not even good enough to be on the sidelines anymore. Kellen Moore is entering the second year as head coach for the New Orleans Saints. They went 6-11 last season and finished dead last in the most winnable division in football, the NFC South. And Kevin Patullo's blowing balloons in a clown mask for my little cousin's 8th birthday party next week, so that's what he's up to. Either way, Jalen Hurts is either very coachable, or all of these coaches realized very quickly that the grass wasn't greener on the other side of working with him. Now let's get to the accusation that it was not Patullo who drew up the final boneheaded play against San Francisco, and that it was actually Jalen Hurts. Is it just me, or is this a dead giveaway that Fowler's anonymous source was just Kevin Patullo crying his eyes out while eating Haagen-Dazs and watching Friday Night Lights? If you have watched the video clip that went viral from that game before the final play of Hurts meeting with Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni, then you saw the look on Jalen's face when Patullo suggested 4 verts. And you saw the look on his face when Sirianni confirmed that that would be the final play drawn up to save the Eagles' season. It is the look of a man who knows that this isn't going to work, but also knows that he doesn't have enough say-so to nix the play call. Look at me when I say this. I don't believe that we're alone in this universe. I don't believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. I don't believe that the earth is flat, and say it with me, I damn sure don't believe that Jalen Hurts drew up the final play of the season to be 4 verticals against San Francisco. And while you're at it, I don't want to tour the Church of Scientology either. What is this ridiculous propaganda? Like, save it for someone who's more easily tricked. But Philly fans are keen to everything, okay? And nobody's going to buy this BS, blatant BS coming out of Jeremy Fowler's mouth. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. People will find any way that they can to try and discredit Jalen Hurts because he is the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's the only reason they need to discredit him. Jeremy Fowler can say what he wants. Real ball knowers understand that Jalen Hurts is the engine that keeps things moving for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now watch him continue to do what he does best. Prove people wrong. And watch what the media does and how they're going to do what they do best, which is move the goalposts the second that he does just that. Our next topic is what has been going on since the start of free agency in the Eagles offseason. The Eagles lost several key free agents on the first day of free agency, including losing defensive end Jalen Phillips to the Carolina Panthers on a 4-year, $120 million deal, safety Reed Blankenship to the Houston Texans for 3 years, $27.25 million, linebacker Nakobe Dean to the Las Vegas Raiders on a 3-year, $36 million deal, and they also let wide receiver Jahan Dotson go to the Atlanta Falcons on a 2-year, $15 million contract. Now, let me stop right there for a second and just say that I know that sounds like a lot to lose, but let's look at them each individually. Phillips was a really good player and a difference maker for us after we traded for him, but at no point in the past, present, or future has he ever been worth $20 million a season. The Eagles wanted to bring him back, but weren't willing to overpay for it. Letting him walk at that price point makes a whole hell of a lot of sense to me, I'll be honest. Now, Nakobe Dean is a great player, and I will definitely miss him. But paying a guy $12 million a season who has missed 27 games in a 4-year span since being drafted is too rich for my blood, and it should be too rich for yours too. The Eagles spent a first-round pick on Jahad Campbell last season, and he impressed in his rookie year. It makes a lot of sense to let Dean walk when you have a younger, cheaper, and more healthy alternative waiting in the wings. Jahan Dotson was as good as gone as soon as the offseason started. He never really produced enough in Philly to be an integral part of the offense, and with this loaded wide receiver draft class coming in, it makes sense that the Eagles could potentially upgrade to a more talented and younger wide receiver on a rookie contract. The only one I am actually very upset about is losing Reed Blankenship. The Eagles are not deep at the safety position, and he was a fan favorite and even a team captain last year. It's hard to see guys like that move on from your favorite team, especially when the position they play immediately becomes a hole that needs to be filled on the roster. I'll always love Reed Blankenship, and I wish him the best in Houston and wherever else his career ends up taking him. Now, let's get to the additions and re-signings. The Eagles signed cornerback Tariq Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks to a 1-year, $12 million deal. They signed slot corner Jonathan Jones to a 1-year deal from the Washington Commanders. They re-signed tight end Dallas Goedert on a 1-year, $7 million deal. And they also re-signed punter Braden Mann to a 4-year, $14 million extension that keeps him under team control until 2029. Now, I'm guessing you guys are confused because in the show open, I said that the moves Howie did make sets the team up well for the draft. Let me explain what I mean by that. The Eagles struggled on that second cornerback spot opposite Quinyon Mitchell all of last season. I mean, they tried everything. They exhausted all options. They put Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett, Mac McWilliams, and even Cooper DeJean on the outside, all to no avail. That's where the Tariq Woolen signing comes in. Tariq Woolen is a 6'4" athletic freak of a cornerback. This guy ran a 4.26 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. He's 26 years old and fresh off of a Super Bowl victory with Seattle. He has 12 career interceptions, which also means he has a GPS for the football. Now, I know you guys are going to bring up the character issues and the taunting penalties. Let me explain why those should be secondary thoughts. Last season, Woolen was benched by Seattle in Week 4 for what was deemed conduct detrimental to the team. He was also just flat out struggling. He had 116.3 passer rating against through the first 6 weeks of the season. That was ranked 82nd among qualifying cornerbacks. After getting his starting job back, his passer rating against of 57.2 was the 6th best among corners over the final 12 weeks of the season. That is elite cornerback play. When this guy has his head on his shoulders, this is one of the best cornerbacks in the game of football. How do you know he's going to keep his head on his shoulders, Will? Great question. Do you guys think a guy who played that well last season and the best offer he got was a 1-year prove-it deal? Do you think he's going to be motivated to have an even more elite season to eventually secure a long-term contract next offseason? Because I do. I think this could be an absolute steal for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that they're in a position where if Tariq Woolen has his head on straight, he's going to play well because he wants to lock up a long-term contract next offseason. Now, I said earlier that these moves shored up the Eagles' secondary, and I know what you guys are thinking. That helps the cornerbacks, but what about safety now that Reed is gone? Well, that's where Jonathan Jones' signing comes in. Jonathan Jones is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He has more experience than anybody in the NFL currently when it comes to playing slot cornerback. The Eagles don't need a slot cornerback. They have the most elite slot corner in the game right now in Cooper DeJean. But I think the Eagles are comfortable with Coop playing anywhere on the defense, and yes, I think that includes the safety position. They re-signed safety Marcus Epps to be a depth piece, and I do think that they will use one of the first 3 draft picks they have in this year's draft on the safety position. But if all else fails, I think they like the idea of Woolen and Q on the outside, Andrew Makuba and Coop at safety, and Jonathan Jones playing slot corner. And I'm not saying that that's an ideal situation, but it gives the Eagles a solid backup plan in case these safety prospects they like are off the board by the time we're on the clock. As for the re-signings of Goddard and Mann, I'm not going to lie, that really surprised me. I didn't see those coming. Goddard's coming off a career year at a premium position in the NFL. I expected him to get a nice big contract from a team that was willing to overpay for his services. Either the market was nowhere close to what he and his agent thought it would be, or he had no intention of ever leaving Philadelphia. And my guess is that it's the latter, because I just don't see how he got that little money on the open market. The Eagles getting a tight end who scored 11 touchdowns last season for $7 million over the course of the year and $4 million at signing is a steal no matter which way you look at it. I will certainly take it. Mann, on the other hand, was confusing because the Eagles have always had trouble locking up good punters. I mean, I can't be the only one who remembers watching Donnie Jones retire for 2 weeks in 2018 just to come out of retirement and sign with the Chargers. And I didn't sit through all that so that Braden Mann could go through a similar fate. So I'm happy they locked him up. It makes him one of the highest paid punters in the NFL while also not breaking the bank for the Eagles. I'm going to be honest, it's hard to be mad at the signing. Now that we've addressed free agency, it's time to address who the Eagles could draft. Before we start, let's identify what I believe to be the Eagles' 3 biggest areas of need for the Eagles entering the draft. Safety, edge rusher or defensive end, and wide receiver, I think, are the 3 biggest needs. Safety, because it's the positions the Eagles are the least deep at. Edge or defensive end, because they need another name in there that can pair well with Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, and Brandon Graham. And wide receiver, because in case you guys haven't, have been living under a rock, there's at least a half-decent chance that A.J. Brown gets traded this offseason, and the Eagles need to be prepared for life without him if that happens, which it won't. But I think the area of need the Eagles will address in the first round of the draft is none of the ones that I listed. I think that they will address offensive tackle in the first round of the draft. If you're anything like me, then those Lane Johnson retirement rumors this offseason scared the living you-know-what out of you. We have been spoiled as Eagles fans because for the last 13 years of our lives, we didn't have to worry about the right side of our offensive line because Lane Johnson is a special player that the Eagles, I don't want to say have taken for granted, but like people don't talk about him like he's as special as he is. But I think that the Eagles' biggest area of need that they're going to have to address is offensive tackle because they need to be prepared for life without Lane Johnson. So this is where the Eagles can go to Lane and say, hey, look, Lane, we love you, and we want you to be an Eagle for as long as you want to play football. But help us draft a solid replacement that can take over for you whenever the time for you to hang it up comes. And that way you kind of leave it in his hands. And who could that replacement be? That's a great question. There are some really solid offensive tackle prospects in this draft. A lot of people have singled out Alabama offensive tackle Caden Proctor. But I think that that's just a popular pick because, A, he's visited with the Eagles in a top 30 visit, and B, we all know how much Howie Roseman loves to draft from the trenches out of Alabama, or really just the SEC overall. But I think the team should focus on the two tackle prospects out of Utah, Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. Fano is projected to be the first tackle off the board, which makes you think he's not going to make it to the Eagles at 22. So that leaves Lomu, a 6'6", 313-pound tackle, and he had a 81.2 athletic score at the combine, which is fourth best among all offensive linemen, tackle, guard, center, all lineman prospects in this draft. He only allowed 2 sacks in his entire college career, and both of them came during his freshman season at Utah. He hasn't allowed a sack in each of the last 2 collegiate seasons. I think that this is the type of offensive tackle prospect that the Eagles should prioritize as a replacement for one of the greatest Eagles players of all time, let alone Eagles linemen. Lane was the 4th overall pick in 2012, which means I think it makes a whole lot of sense to use a first-round pick on his replacement instead of trying to replace him with a later-round pick and plug and play. Caleb Lomu helps the Eagles prepare for life without Lane Johnson, and I think that's more important than adding depth to both the defensive end room or the wide receiver room. That'll do it for this episode of the Eagles offseason edition of the Willadelphia Show. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and be on the lookout. I got new content coming out. So I got no school yet. What do you think about Jeremy Fowler's article on Jalen Hurts? Did the Eagles do enough in free agency, or do you want another move from Howard? And who do you think the Eagles could target in this month's draft? Let me know all of that and more down in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe to Willadelphia Sports and follow us on social media. I'm out of here, guys. Go Birds and Kabooyah.